All right, so today's class we are looking at perimeter and area of polygons. So before we start, we need to know what is a polygon. All right, so it's a flat or plane, two-dimensional closed shape bounded with straight edges. All right, there's no curved sides, so a circle is not a polygon. So the smallest one we would have is a triangle, which has three sides. The sides of a polygon, they're also called edges. And then the points where the two sides are meeting, those are called vertices or corners, or vertex for one. Okay, and so for example, this is a triangle. It's got three sides, three vertices. There's no diagonals. We looked at the interior sum when we were looking at angles. So it's got an interior angle sum of 180. All right, when we talk about diagonals, it's just being able to make diagonals like these. So a quadrilateral, which has four sides and four vertices, we're able to make two diagonals. A pentagon like this, we can make 5 diagonals. A hexagon, we're able to make 9 diagonals. All right, so these are just some of those polygons that we're going to be talking about. But we're going to be looking at perimeter first, and then we'll talk about area after. So perimeter measures the distance around any polygon. So we're going to use the 4-step method where there's a diagram, formula, substitution, and then the solution. So we'll start with the square. So the square, for perimeter, we know that we would add up all the sides to get that distance around the polygon. But here we are going to use these formula methods for both perimeter and area. So looking at a square, to calculate the perimeter of a square, it would be 4s. So 4 times s, the s stands for side. All right, so here we know our side is 8.2. So we would just insert that or substitute that in. So 4 times 8.2, and then we would just multiply that out, and that gives me 32.8 decimeters. All right, here we have a rectangle. The formula for the perimeter of a rectangle is 2L plus 2W. All right, if you were just adding up the sides, it would just be 9 plus 9 plus 4 plus 4. But we are going to practice using formula method. So 2 times length, which is 9, plus 2W, our W is 4. All right, so that gives me 18 plus 8. And so the perimeter is 26 hectometers. Next, we have the rhombus. It's like a tilted square. All the sides are the same. They are shown by that single dashed line. And just to clarify here, we have the double dashed line here and here. So that means these two lines have the same length. And then single dashed line, therefore those two sides have the same length. So here we have the single dashed line on all 4 sides. The perimeter is 4b. A lowercase b here represents base. So we're going to 4 times 5 and 3/4. And just feel free to just put that in your calculator. All right, so when you put that into your calculator, we end up with 23 meters. Okay, so next we have a parallelogram. So it's like a tilted rectangle. But again, we have the 2 dashed line, the double dashed line, and then the single dashed line representing these two sides are the same and these two sides are the same. And our formula is 2b plus 2s. S is side, b is base. 2 times 7 plus 2 times 4. which gives me 14 plus 8, which gives me 22 meters. All right, so next we have a scalene triangle. A scalene triangle, all three sides of the triangle are different in length. That's what a scalene triangle is. So the perimeter is the base plus side 1 plus side 2. So we would have 12 plus 8 plus 9, okay, which gives me 29 meters. Next, we have an isosceles triangle. Two sides are the same. Two angles here will be the same as well. And then the base is a different length. That's an isosceles triangle. So B plus 2S. So base of 5 plus 2 times S. So 2 times 14. That gives me 5 plus 28. Which gives me 33 meters. Right here we have an equilateral triangle. All three sides have the same length. So P equals 3B. So 3 times 14.2, which is 42.6 kilometers. All right, last one here is trapezoid. So a trapezoid, we got the two bases and then the two sides. So base 1 plus base 2, side 1 plus side 2. All right, so 10 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6, which gives me 31 meters. All right, next we have the regular polygon. And for a regular polygon, we have P equals NS. The N represents number of sides. So N is number of sides. And then S is the side length, just like we've seen in the previous examples. The S represents side length. All right, so we would count the number of sides here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So perimeter is 6 times the side length, which is 3.7. Okay, and that gives me 22.2, and that's millimeters. All right, circle. This is the circumference of a circle, which is basically the distance around the circle. So it's like the perimeter of the circle. All right, so you could use either C equals pi d or C equals 2 pi r. And all the examples and all the problems we'll be doing in our modules, the pi is just used as 3.14. Okay, you might have the pi button in your calculator, so your answers might be a little bit off if you're using the pi button in your calculator. If you use the 3.14, then your answers will match those in the modules. All right, so C equals pi d or 2 pi r. So just recall, diameter is from one end of the circle through the center to the other end of the circle. That is diameter. So in this case, the diameter is 30 meters. If we were to figure out the radius would be half the diameter. So the radius here would be 30 divided by 2, which would be 15 meters. All right, but we can use pi d or 2 pi r. Since we already have diameter, then we're just going to multiply 3.14 for pi times 30 for the diameter, which gives me 94.2 meters. All right, and you can try that with the other equation as well. If we were to use C equals 2 pi r and r is 15, you would get the same answer. So 2 times 3.14 times 15, it still gives us the same answer of 94.2. For the first example, which is a trapezoid, we would just do perimeter is the base 1 plus base 2 plus side 1 plus side 2. So 8.3 plus 7 plus 4.7 plus 4.6. And then the perimeter is equal to 24.6 meters. All right, make sure you are showing your units. And then for circumference of the circle, which is the perimeter, c equals pi d. So we are using 3.14 times the 18, which is its diameter, and we get 56.52 decimeters. Okay, I'll give you guys a moment to try this one here. So we're looking for the perimeter of this shape here. All right, so we're calculating the perimeter here for this shape. So what we'll do is, we know from here to here is 6, and then from here to here is 2, then here to here is 2, well, that's kind of off. From here to here is 3, this is 12, this has to be 3, right, because from here to here is 2, so this here from here to here has to be 3 meters, and then we have lastly the 4 meters. So adding all of that up, we'll start at the 6 meters. Okay, so we have the 6 plus the 2 here, then 2 there, so another 2, then we have the 3, then we have the 12, then we have this 3, then we have 4, and then the 2 here. All right, so all of that we're going to add up, and the total is 34 meters when you add all of that up. All right, so the first question, a square's perimeter is measured to be 64.64 centimeters. How long would each side of this square be? So we know the perimeter is 64.64, and then we are trying to solve for S. So we would divide by 4 on both sides, which gives me S is equal to 16.16 centimeters. All right, so each side is 16.16 centimeters for that square. Here, what is the diameter of a circle with a circumference of 84.78 meters? So we know the circumference. The circumference is 84.78. And then for pi, we're using 3.14 and multiplied by d. So we have to divide by 3.14 both sides, which will give me d is equal to 84.78 divided by 3.14, which is 27 meters. All right, so next we are looking at area. So just recall, perimeter was the distance around the edge of the shape. Now when we look at area, area is the amount of space inside of a shape. All right, so area measures the number of square units within any polygon. So again, we're going to use the 4-step method: diagram, formula, substitution, solution. Okay, so area, the space enclosed by the boundary of a plane figure. It's the number of unit squares that cover the surface of a closed figure, and it's measured in square units. So for example, if it was centimeters, it would be centimeters squared, meters squared, so on. So let's look at our first examples here. We have a square. Area is equal to side squared, which is side times side. All right, so a square, all four sides are the same. So side squared would be 7.2 squared, which is just side times side. So 7.2 times 7.2. So that gives me 51.84, and it's meters squared. Okay, units are very important. Make sure you are writing the correct units when solving for perimeter or area. All right, the formula for rectangle, the area formula is length times width. So length times the width. So 17 times 8, which gives me 136. And it's centimeters squared. All right, the rhombus, so again, it was like that tilted square. The sides are all the same, but to calculate the area of a rhombus, we need this here. It's the height. It's represented as lowercase a, representing altitude. All right, so height or altitude. So area is a times b, so the altitude is 8, and then the base here is 9. All right, that gives me 72 meters squared. All right, and then similarly for the parallelogram, altitude times the base. So here the altitude or height, it is 6.2, and then the base is 12. Okay, so multiply 6.2 times 12, that gives you 74.4, and then hectometers times hectometers, we use hectares, all right, which is the hectometers squared. Next is triangles. So triangles, you've probably seen one of these formulas. Either of them works. 0.5 AB, half AB, or AB divided by 2. A represents the altitude or height, and then B is the base. All right, so any of those formulas would work. So area equals, let's just use half A times B. All right, so the altitude or height is 5, and then the base is 12. All right, so just put that into your calculator, and we get 30 meters squared. All right, so either of those formulas would work. All right, next is trapezoids. So trapezoids, there's two different formulas that can be used. 0.5 AB1 plus 0.5 AB2. Okay, so you can use this formula, or you can use this one, which is 0.5a, and then in brackets we have b1 plus b2. So I usually prefer this formula for trapezoids. Again, a represents altitude, b1 is this base, b2 would be this base. All right, so let's try that out here. So area is 0.5 times the altitude, which is 15, and then b1 plus b2, so 40 plus 34. All right, so work out the brackets first there before we do any multiplying. So 0.5 times 15, and then 40 plus 34 is 74. Now we can go ahead and multiply. So 0.5 times 15 times 74, which gives me 555 meters squared. Okay. All right, so next we have regular polygons. And the formula for a polygon is A equals 0.5 ANS. And here, the A represents the apothem. Okay, the A here represents the apothem, which is this dashed line here. It's a segment that joins the polygon's center to the midpoint of any side, and it is perpendicular to that side, shown with that little square, showing it's a 90-degree angle. All right, so that's the apothem with the lowercase a. And then n is the number of sides. Let's write that out here. N is number of sides. And then the s is the side length. All right, so let's plug everything in here. So 0.5, the apothem is 17. The number of sides here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the side length is 24 centimeters. All right, so everything is just being multiplied. So you can just multiply that out, put it into your calculator, and we get 1,224 centimeters squared. All right, and then here we have the circle. So we're looking for the area of the circle. The formula is pi r squared. Again, for pi, we will use 3.14. So area is equal to 3.14, and then it's radius squared, which means radius times radius. All right, so 5.6, and that's squared. Just the radius is squared, not all of it. All right, so you put in your calculator 3.14 times 5.6 times 5.6, or you can use the squared button. All right, so that gives me 98.4704 meters squared. All right, so a common mistake again is some students will square all of this. Okay, so pay attention to that. Make sure you're only squaring the radius. Okay, so our first example here, we have a regular polygon, and our formula for the area of a regular polygon is A equals 0.5 ANS. A is the apothem, which is 8.6. N is the number of sides, which is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then S is the side length, which is 9.3 meters. All right, so we'll substitute all of that into our formula. All right, and it's all just being multiplied. So once you put that into the calculator, we get an answer of 199.95 meters squared. Okay, always remember the units for area will always be squared. All right, let's try this one next. So we have this large triangle with 4 little mini triangles inside of it. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what we know here is 8 meters is the base. And then from here to here, we can see that our height is 3.5 meters. So for this, you can work with a tiny triangle and then multiply that by 4. All right, give that a try. All right, so for this example here, we will just use a small triangle because all the triangles here, they all have the same length. We've already determined it's 4 meters here and 4 meters here. So area of a triangle is half and then AB. So that would become half 4 is the base. Base, and then the height is, altitude is 3.5, but that doesn't matter. We're just multiplying anyways. So if you mix these two up, it's okay. I'll multiply this out, and we get 7 meters squared, but that's just for that one triangle. So we'll multiply by 4. So we'll take that 7 meters squared, and multiply it by 4, which gives us a total of 28 meters squared. Okay, for the whole triangle. So our next example, so the area of a square is 64 meters squared. What is the perimeter of this square? Alright, so for this question, we're given the area of a square, it's 64 meters squared, and we have to figure out what the perimeter of the square is. So we can't figure out the perimeter until we know the side length. So what we've done here is use our formula for the area of a square. Area is equal to side squared. So we knew that our area was 64, and that's equal to side squared. So to get to the side, we have to take the square root of both sides, and that gives me a side length of 8 meters. Alright, so just drawing it out here, 8 meters is the side length of the square, so that means each side is 8 meters for that square. So now we can go ahead and figure out our perimeter. You can add up all 4 sides, or we can use the formula, which is 4 times s. So perimeter is equal to 4 times the 8 meters, which gives me a perimeter of 32 meters. Next example, an old rotating lawn sprinkler sprays water a distance of 7 meters. A new sprinkler sprays water a distance of 10 meters. What is the increase in area being sprayed with the new sprinkler? So we're not just looking at the increase in length, we're looking at the increase in area. And it's an old rotating lawn sprinkler, so that means it's making a circle. All right, so we have our radius, 7 meters for the old sprinkler. So the formula for area is pi r squared. So we've already substituted that in. So we just have to multiply this out. So for the small or old sprinkler, it's 153.86 meters squared. All right, same thing here we're going to do for the new sprinkler. So area is 3.14, radius is 10 squared. That gives me the area of 314 meters squared. All right, so lastly, we just have to figure out what is that increase in area. So what is the difference? All right, so we'll just subtract 314 meters squared minus 153.86 meters squared, and the increase in area is 160.14 meters squared. All right, so you would just end that with your final statement or sentence that the increase in area being sprayed is 160.14 meters squared. All right, so for perimeter and area of this trapezoid, so perimeter, all we're going to do is add up all the sides. So for perimeter, we're just going to add up 5 plus 4 plus 6 plus 3. All right, so the 5 plus 4 plus 6 plus 3. Add that all together, and our perimeter is 18 meters. All right, so there's our perimeter. For area, we have to use our formula, 0.5a, and then in brackets we have base 1 plus base 2. So recall that the bases are the two sides that are parallel to each other. So 6 meters and the 5 meters, those are the two bases. 4 meters and 3 meters, those are just the two sides. Our altitude or the height is here as 2.5 meters. So let's substitute all of that in. So 0.5 times the A. A is our altitude there, which is 2.5. And then our base 1 is 6 meters. And our base 2 is 5 meters. All right, so next we have to work out what's in the brackets here. So we'll just rewrite everything out. So 0.5 times 2.5, and then 6 plus 5 is 11. All right, so now we are just multiplying this out. So 0.5 times 2.5 times 11, and we'll get our area of 13.75 meters squared. Okay, so when we're working on a problem like this, we have a rectangle, we also have half circle and a half circle, forming a full circle. So let's make sure that we are organizing our steps here. So let's do the perimeter here. All right, so we're doing the perimeter here. So firstly, let's work with the circumference of the circle. All right, so since it's half a circle and a half circle, it's just forming a full circle. So we can just find the circumference of that. So circumference is equal to pi d. So therefore, 3.14 times 74, which is the diameter of the circle. So that gives me 232.36 meters. All right, that's for the circle. Next, we have to figure out the perimeter of just these two areas here. So just this length and just this length, all right, which is 188 meters. So the total perimeter, so perimeter total is going to be 188 plus 188 plus the 232.36. All right, so our perimeter, therefore, is 608.36 meters. That is the perimeter of that figure. All right, so next we have to figure out the area of this total figure. So we have the rectangle. We'll figure out the area of the rectangle. Then we have a half circle and a half circle, which forms a full circle. So we just need to figure out the area of the full circle. All right, so again, keep your work organized. So area of the rectangle is a length times width. So length times width. So 188 times the 74, which gives me 13,912 meters squared. That's the area for the rectangle. Then we have the area of the circle, okay, which is pi r squared. All right, so we are given diameter here. Our diameter is 74 meters. So for radius, we have to do 74 divided by 2, which is 37. That is our radius. All right, so now we can plug that in here. So pi, we use 3.14. Our radius is 37, and that's being squared. All right, so in your calculators, you're putting 3.14 times 37 times 37, which gives me 4,298.66 meters squared. All right, so we have to add those two up together. So area total is adding those together. So 13,912 plus 4,298.66, which gives me a total area of 18,210.66 meters squared. All right, so that is area total. So again, making sure that you are keeping your work organized, showing all your steps is very important when working on these kind of problems.